Well, they doing it at the G-Lew Show Westside Radio with a sprinkle of that tweed Cadillac by the way of the pot stirred by demons. Gangster got the motherfucking church house, and then Flossie got us up in this Bentley. So this is the G-Lew Show Westside Radio, the 27th letter of the alphabet, which comes to the number 9 when you add it up, the Hidden University of America, where they doing it at.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Welcome to the G-Lew Show, the world famous Westside Wednesdays radio show, hosted by me, G-Lew. Shout out to Miss Queen Jean, who's out tonight with the family, death in the family. But shout out to Queen Jean. But again, I am G-Lew. This is the G-Lew Show, sponsored by BTP Media Group, 93 Point Tweed FMism, Diddy Harrison, Ladies of Football, and Westside Car Club. Tonight we have a special guest on the show with us. Man, the legendary man behind the scenes. You may not know or know the face, but you know the work and what he's done in the industry, people who he's helped, and things he's done, things that he does as well. Entrepreneur, different things he does outside of what we're speaking on tonight, as him being the former vice president of No Limit Records. Yes, No Limit Records. So without any further ado, let me bring our guest in for the evening, Mr. Big TC, Tobin Costen, live on the G-Lew Show, Westside Wednesdays. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing, G-Lew? I love your show. I love what you do, and I'm appreciative that you give me some time on your show tonight.
Oh, man. The pleasure's all mine, man. The pleasure's all mine, man. Very excited to have you on. Just to hear your story, man. You know, the story is incredible, and just a lot of people just don't know that history. And, and on top of that, you have things you have going on. You got a movie and things coming out, different other things that you do that you want to speak on as well.
Yeah.
But before we do all that, let's just kick it off, man, and give you a formal introduction. I mean, yourself, you can introduce yourself to the people. I spoke on you a little bit, but I'm sure it's much more to you and just how you want to be introduced to the world.
Well, my name is Tobin T.C. Costen. Some folks call me Big Tobe. Some people call me T.C. I am the former manager of Master P and the executive vice president for No Limit Records. So there are some people that know me from that. We just did the No Limit Chronicles, so a lot of folks have reached out to me based on that. I'm also Professor Tobin Costen at Holy Names University in lovely Oakland, California. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own beverage company called Psycho Cider, doing hard cider in the Bay Area. And also I dabble a little bit into the movie-making scene. I have my movie, The Reverend Jew Wrong Ain't Right, that I got playing on YouTube right now. And it was also on Amazon Prime. So folks can check that out there. And then I work with one of my former students. His name is Hammer. We have the Costen and Hammer Network, and we are focused on raising money for the Special Olympics. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, but real focused on raising money for the Special Olympics. So it's an exciting time to be doing a lot of things and trying to be focused on giving back to the community during these times of COVID and during these times of unrest, just trying to make sure that we're doing our part.
Right. And you spoke on Oakland. Is that where you were from or raised, or where did you come up
No. So I grew up in Germany, actually. My father was in the military.
Okay.
So I traveled quite a bit and moved quite a bit. But most of the time I spent was in Germany, in Nuremberg, Germany, Bremerhaven, Germany, Ramstein, Germany, and Würzburg, Germany. And I graduated from high school from Würzburg, Germany.
Wow.
And, a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, that's my background, spending most of my time growing up in Germany, military family, military life. Went to multiple high schools because of my dad kept getting transferred. And it's just been a great experience because, military brats, we all stick together. You always find people who are brats. We're kind of adjusted because we meet people, and we are just always focused on doing something new and doing something different. So that's kind of how I came up,
right.
Traveling the world and seeing the world. And a lot of times when people say, hey, you read something in a book and then you're able to go see it, or you're able to go see a castle, or you're able to go see the Colosseum, or you're able to go to Costa Brava and look at the beautiful beaches. And so when you're able to do those things because your father's in the military and it's pretty easy for you to get around, and especially in Europe, it's just, it's just definitely a very good way to be and a really good way to learn. I had great teachers and great friends,
right.
and a lot of my friends, my closest friends, I went to high school with over in Germany. And I still got so much love for them, and they got love for me. So that's my background growing up in Europe, if you will, under being in a military family.
Right. Yeah, that is crazy. Never would have knew that. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Yeah,
man.
a lot of people don't.
So obviously it sounded good, like you liked.
Oh, I loved it. It was a great experience. When you think about many of my friends have had success. A lot of them, like there's not too many horror stories of people I went to school with because, most of the folks that I went to school with, they joined the military and had great careers, or they professionals. One of my buddies, my closest friend, played in the NFL. In fact, one of my friends, her husband played in the NFL, Bryant Young, former 49er, and hopefully he'll get in the Hall of Fame. And my buddy Anthony Brown played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, and his brother Mike Brown used to be the head coach over at the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Lakers, and also he's now an assistant coach over at the Warriors. And he's we're still all friends to this day, and we all went to the same school, Würzburg American High School in Würzburg, Germany.
Wow. Wow.
So, small
that's
world.
Incredible, man. It is.
It is crazy.
Wow. Hey, well, tell me this: so when you did come to the States, where did you pretty much land and live? I don't know if you still moved around, and what would you call home at that point?
I moved around the United States a little bit too, back and forth. But I lived in Texas for a while. I lived in San Antonio. Went to Robert G. Cole High School for a little bit. Went to St. Anthony's in San Antonio. Robert G. Cole and those folks who don't know, Robert G. Cole is where Shaquille O'Neal went to high school, Robert G. Cole Cougars. And, I lived in Oklahoma when I was young for a little bit in Lawton, Oklahoma. But when I graduated from high school from Würzburg High School in Germany, I went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. So that's kind of where Spokane,
My
Washington.
Brother, he lived in Spokane.
Oh, cool. So, I spent time in Spokane, Washington. Got to say shout out to my boys Johnny V and my boy Grand Mixer GMS. I used to do a radio show with GMS up there at KAG Radio. We did our show was the Rap Attack. It was the only rap show in Spokane, Washington. So that's kind of how I used to be a DJ, and I used to mix and used to spin. So that's kind of how I kind of got started in hip hop. Now, I always loved hip-hop because I was always making beats and rapping. My boy Soul Element, who still performs out there in Würzburg, Germany, we used to make music together, and I used to make beats and DJ and all that stuff. So that's how I always fell in love with hip-hop. And my mother's from New York, and my father is from Washington, D.C., so I spent some time in New York just with family and stuff, and that's how I kind of got turned on to hip-hop. Always loved it. Someone always asked me, like, when did you fall in love with hip-hop? I said, man, when I heard Sucker MCs by Run DMC, and I just blew my mind. I love that beat. I love the way it came, and they played that record. Like, absolutely. And then I think what took it to the next level, for me, there was two records after that. I was a huge UTFO fan. I still am. They're like my favorite group. So when UTFO came out, they did a record called Beats and Rhymes. And when I heard that record and I heard Doc Ice and Tango Kid, I was hooked on those guys. And then when Houdini did the Freaks Come Out at Night, and then Fat Boys did the Houdini with the Freaks Come Out at Night, and then the Fat Boys, they did Can You Feel Me? And then before that, they did the Jailhouse Rap. I was like, man, I was all in on hip hop and wanted to be a part of it. So by the time I went to high school, I was kind of performing in little clubs in Germany and trying to make my way. And then when I moved to Washington State, I got on the radio show and I started doing the Rap Attack and meeting up with guys like Johnny V up in Spokane. Meeting cats like B Mello, who's world-renowned DJ out of Seattle, Nasty Ness Rodriguez, learning from him, world-renowned DJ obviously in Seattle, and then at that time, and then really GMS and Johnny V and just doing these radio shows. That's kind of how I kind of got hip to what was going on in hip hop from a radio standpoint and mixing and playing music and stuff.
Right. So how do you where do you go from that point? Like, how do you wind up, per se in the industry and I guess later hooking up with P, where the rest was history?
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, I wanted to be a rapper. So I wanted to be a rapper and a performer. So at that time at the radio station, all the radio promoters were always sending me records and stuff like that, and I started getting to know different promoters and different, folks in the industry. So at that time, I had, found out, I was like, hey, I want to rap, I want to do these, I want to perform, I want to, I wanted to do it big. And you start doing your research and finding out that rappers were making at that time probably 6 to 12%. And a lot of times didn't own their masters. If they did, they only owned a percentage of it, and didn't own their publishing and all that kind of stuff. And I found out that the business side of the music business was really where you could make a living and do some great things. Now, you could be a star but still be broke, and that's not something that I wanted. So I had met E40's Uncle St. Charles. So E40's Uncle St. Charles was always promoting these different records. So I had already met him, and that's kind of how I knew more and more about the music. And I was doing a show. I met Master P in 1992. I was doing a little show, and I couldn't find anyone to kind of headline, if you will. And Master P knew my godbrother, Bernard Emerson, who was a manager at a Foot Locker, and P would always come out every week and get the shoes. And he had said, hey, I got this guy named Master P. I don't know, he might come up and do your show. So P came up and did the show, and we just hit it off. Like, from a friend perspective, we just became friends. And he had asked me in 1993 to join the company as kind of doing promotion, marketing and promotion and, that kind of stuff. And I started doing that. Well, at that time, St. Charles already knew me because I was doing some stuff, working some stuff, some albums that he had, music from some folks he was working and doing some promotions. And he's the one who had told P that he should make me his manager and make me kind of the head of the label, have me run the label so he could really focus on the production aspect of it, and I could do the business side of it. So 1993, after I joined, in 1994, I became, Master P's personal manager, his business manager, the executive vice president of the label, basically running the label, and just it kind of took off from there. So most people at that time were saying, hey, man, you can't start at that level. You need to be the guy that goes to pick up laundry and pick up coffee. You got to be the intern guy. And I was always like, well, why do I have to do that? I know I have ideas and I have a vision. And one thing I think that P appreciated, as well as St. Charles, they knew I was very organized. They knew I had all these different ideas that didn't necessarily, wasn't the norm. And they said, man, and saying it told P, give me an opportunity. And P was like, man, I want you to manage me. I want you to take care of all the stuff. And then it just worked. So we worked on a record in 1994, and we put out to St. Charles Solar Music Group called The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me. And that album was kind of a crazy cover because it had King George on the cover with a gun. A rapper King George on the cover had a gun, and P was making love to a woman on the bed, and it was The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me. And the imagery of it was King George was the ghetto and he was trying to kill P. So when we put one of the records on that album was called 211, and it was about 211 is the code for robbery, you know, and it was a story about someone that, hey, I'm gonna pull a 211, 211, I'm gonna go rob a liquor store and all this kind of stuff. Well, what happened was there was this young cat that was going around in California robbing people. He was like, you know, he was robbing people at the ATM. He was going to liquor stores. He was doing all this stuff. And what happened was when he got arrested in the newspaper, and I think even on television, he was saying that he listened to Master P, this song, and this is why he was doing what he was doing. So immediately we started doing television interviews, and we started doing radio interviews, and we started doing newspaper interviews and all that stuff, and that kind of blew that album up. Not that album wasn't good. It told a really good story about the overall life of being in the hood, but it was everybody ran to the store to go buy this album by this guy Master P that influenced this man into robbing people. And after that, we never looked back, because he came up with the idea of doing the compilation, the West Coast Bad Boys. So the concept was taking all of these popular rappers from the West Coast and putting them on one album and having the name Master P Presents, as he's the leader of these groups. So we had JT the Bigger Figure, Rally Row was on there, Lil Rick was on there, the Delinquents, Rappin' Forte, Sibo. I mean, all these top rappers on the West Coast were on this album, and what everybody saw was Master P Presents. So once we got that album done, and we did a Peace to the Streets video that had everybody in it, and we dropped that, and we did all these T-shirts and all that stuff, and we dropped that album. The album just took off, and it was in the retail stores, because if you like JT the Bigger Figure, you were going to pick this album up. If you like the Delinquents, you're going to pick this album up. And what happened is everybody who was a fan of each rapper picked the album up, and the thing just shot up the Billboard charts. And after it shot up the Billboard charts, then everybody wanted to be down with Master P. Everybody wanted to know what we were working on and what we were doing. And the next step after that was we have to jump on this momentum and do the 99 Ways to Die album. And we went out, we took the pictures and everything, and this is where we kind of stepped our game up, where we started working with better producers, right? You know, we always there's a relationship with EHD, and then there's Al Eaton, who did work for Too Short, and then K. Luke and Franklin. So had better producers and better sound, and the album cover was P smoking a cigar on the cover with two guns. He had a shirt off and had the TRU tattoo and two guns, and it was called 99 Ways to Die. And one of the songs in that called When They Gone was kind of was dedicated to his brother Kevin Miller, who had passed away. So that's when okay, you got the West Coast Bad Boys out. Then we hit him with the 99 Ways, and after that, Master P was the hottest thing out. And there were a lot of labels that were trying to sign Master P as an artist. And you know, there was MCA, and there was Big Beat Atlantic, there was Hollywood Records, there was all these labels trying to sign him as an artist deal. And he, we met with so many different people. We went to New York and met with a record exec named Craig Coleman from Big Beat Atlantic. And we were going to sign, he was going to sign an artist deal because he wanted to sacrifice the Master P name in order to put money behind No Limit Records and to put money behind Silk the Shocker. And I said, this is crazy, because even if you sign this deal, you can't even rap on a No Limit Record song, because you're tied to these folks for all these years. Even though the advance money was solid, it just wasn't a good situation. So after, P would always say this thing: if I ever said something we never argued before, but if I said something he didn't agree with, he would always like, "Are you sure? You're gambling with everything we got." That's what he would always say. And on this one, he was like, "Man, you're gambling with everything we got." And it was to the point even C. Murder and King George were mad at me because they thought I was a fool for passing up, for pushing P to hold on a little bit longer. And at that time, Billboard charts were hot. We met with Brian Turner and Mark Cerami over at Priority Records. E.A. Ski had already had a situation up there, so he kind of walked us through the door. But at first they were talking about artist deal. And because we had a conversation with an attorney named Leroy Bobbitt from Loeb and Loeb, and Leroy Bobbitt told us all the different scenarios of a production deal, talked to us about artist deal, talked to us about all these different opportunities, and then he's the one who mentioned, Leroy Bobbitt mentioned a P&D deal, a pressing and distribution deal. And when he said that, that's when we were like, okay, this is where we want to go. So by the time we met with Priority, and like I said, E.A. Ski kind of opened the door for us and had a relationship with them, we were adamant we were doing an 85-15 deal, and that's was the contract that we signed, 85-15. And then after that, it was like, okay, what's your next album? And that was, hey, we're going to do the TRU, we're going to do the Ice Cream Man, which everyone was waiting on. We were going to do, at that time, we had brought Mia X into the fold, Serve On, so we're going to do a Mia X project. We were looking at doing solo projects with Big Ed and King George, and Silk solo projects. So we had already had all these things in the works. But the next project was TRU, and then was the Down South Hustlers, which was the same thing as the West Coast Bad Boys, putting all the popular rappers in the South instead of in the West, all the popular rappers in the South, and putting them on one album with Master P Present. And that's kind of how things took off from there.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'd heard of P, but really when I got familiar with P, like, was when the Ice Cream Man. I know he had the 99 Ways to Die and the Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, which were his two first legit products. You know what I mean? Because I went back on them later. You know what I mean? And those two albums were the ones, and the first to really appeal. Good records. But Ice Cream Man was the one when I was introduced really to Pigs. I remember it came out, was that 96 or 95, 96. And the Down South Hustlers came out, I believe, right behind that.
So the Down South Hustlers came out first. And the Ice Cream Man.
The Ice Cream Man just. Okay.
And I think what happened was, they were kind of like back to back to back. So the TRU album came out, the Down South Hustlers album came out. We did Mia X did a single, and then we did her EP, and then doing the Ice Cream Man. And the Ice Cream Man was such a great album because that had so many different sounds, but that was kind of the foundation of the Beast by the Pound.
That was his best album to me today.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that album. Yes, but I was a big fan of that. I was a big fan of the Ice Cream Man because I was there for most of that album. We split right before that album came out, but I was there for most of the album being recorded and putting that together. That was a favorite of mine. I like 99 Ways to Die. I like the Ice Cream Man better, but I like the 99 Ways to Die because that's when you really see a growth in P. So if you listen to his sound from the Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, that's when it started to become more professional. Some folks say, I was part of building that team of let's tell this great story, to then moving from there and then doing the West Coast Bad Boys and seeing him grow as an artist and doing songs with folks like Sibo, and then taking it to the next level of doing 99 Ways to Die. I mean, that was great. And then I have a sense of pride with the TRU album we did too, because we recorded that TRU album in, I think it was like 10 days. So we knocked that whole album out, and it was like 10 days. And at the same time, we were recording We were recording, the Ice Cream Man and Mia X's project, and we were doing the TRU project, and then recording the Down South Hustlers. So we're recording all these songs at the same time. But when we had the TRU album done, we knew we had a hit record. I mean, and when we did I'm Bout It, because P originally did I'm Bout It, because KLC did the beat for I'm Bout It, but he originally did I'm Bout It as a radio promo for Wild Wayne. He was the hot DJ at Q93 in New Orleans, and P did that song for him it was like a minute and a half intro, and so many people called and requested it that and they were saying, hey, this is not a song, but so many people requested it, we made a decision to make it into a song. And at first, P was like, man, that's just the intro. I don't want to do that. And I kind of said, man, I think that would be hot, especially if you start talking about the different towns in the Bay and the different people in the hood being about it. People are going to go crazy. And when we did that record, and he recorded that and remixed it, and we went to Priority and played that record for him, Dave Weiner and Mark Cerami and Brian Turner lost their mind. They thought that was the most incredible record, and they were like, man, this thing's going to be huge. And honestly, it was the first part of really kind of building this huge foundation for P, and then also everyone who was in TRU at the time, blowing them up, blowing up King George, blowing up Big Ed, blowing up, even giving Cali G, who wasn't really on the album, but he was on the pictures and everything, giving his name out there, and Silk the Shocker. So it really kind of did something for each individual who was in the group at that time.
Right. Would you say that was the first album to reach a different type of success? Did like Ice Cream Man, kind of go bigger than you guys expected? How did you guys?
No, I mean Ice. Well, see, the Ice Cream
it was like on BET every day. The video blew up.
Absolutely. We thought that the TRU album was going to be our first. So let's back up. So the 99 Ways to Die was an actual EP. The great thing about EPs, you can go gold if you go 250,000 units on an EP. So our goal was like, hey, we know we had this great success with the West Coast Bad Boys. We know if we push this 99 Ways to 250,000 copies, because it was like 13 songs on there, but we made it an EP, because if we push 250,000 copies, we go gold, we would have a true gold album independently. So our thought was like, we're going to go gold with this 99 Ways. We're going to go gold again with TRU. The Down South Hustlers, our thought process was it was going to go platinum, and then we would at minimum go platinum with the Ice Cream Man. Like that's just how we kind of planned it. We knew it was going to be a kind of a stepping stone. Like we felt that the West Coast record of 99 Ways, we could really have that West Coast sound that people, because it had that organ and that deep bass, and people were really on that, and we were so hot at that point coming off the West Coast Bad Boys, and then we also, just to give people something to listen to, we also did a High for Christmas album. We did a West Coast Bad Boy Christmas album that sold some units that was kind of popular too. So we were coming off back to back to back, like really popular records. So we really thought that the TRU album was going to go gold. And we thought the 99 Ways, because it was an EP, was going to go gold. And we definitely thought those other albums were going to go platinum. I think the album that really, TRU was popular because I'm Bout It was on there. There were other songs on there that were good, but that I'm Bout It song, that song blew it up, and that's what kind of made P more national, if you will. And even though it was a TRU album, Master P and Mia X carried that song. Right. And then I think that when people nationally knew who P was, by the time that the Ice Cream Man dropped, P was a household name. We did some ads in different magazines. We did a 2-page ad spread in The Source, and it had our albums coming out, and there was a Cadillac. I think it was a Cadillac and a Benz, you know, and P in the front, and it said, "We run the streets, No Limit Records, we run the streets." And then still independent and not selling out. That was kind of the tagline I gave us. I said that, you know, people thought it was great that we were independent, so I said, hey, still independent and not selling out. That was the slogan that I always kind of ran with, and we did that.
Right.
And once people saw that 2-page spread in the Source magazine, people they lost their mind and thought it was incredible. And that's really what kind of, I think, when the Ice Cream, by the time the Down South Hustlers album was out, it was like 13 on the R&B charts, it was in the Billboard charts, and then by the time the Ice Cream Man dropped, Master P was a household name, and anything that he did from there was going to be big.
Right. Yeah, both of those albums were big right there, right around the summertime. I remember I had both of them, and Down South Hustlers was a double CD. You know, that was one of its kind at that time. That was the first. You know.
Well, yes, I agree with you, because nobody else was doing that. Yep. No one else at that time was really doing that. So we came up with that idea because we kept getting songs, and we kept listening to songs, and each song that we got better and better. And we committed to certain people to be on the album. So it had so many different songs. I had said to P, I said, look, because then everyone was charging $22.99 or whatever it was, $24.99 for a double CD. And I said to P, I said, well, what if we gave people the value pack and we sold double CD, but instead of charging people this $24.99 or whatever $22.99 or whatever, we only charge whatever the difference is the cost it is to make one more CD. So back then, I don't know, it was like 80 cents or something. So I said, look, let's say we charge $1.20. So instead of the normal $15.98, we charge $16.98, or instead of the normal $16.98, we charge $17.98. And people feel for $17.98, they're getting the value pack. They're getting a double album that has folks like the Dayton Family and 8 Ball and MJG and UGK and 20 to Life and CCG and TRU and King George and like all of these artists that are regionally successful, that people like, okay, it's the same process or concept of the West Coast Bad Boys. And with the double CD, people got their money's worth, and they just loved it, because it was a great album. And then you have folks like UGK on the album and Pimp C. You know, we brought Pimp C. I flew Pimp C out to California and put him and Bun B up so we could record some songs on the Down South Hustlers. And then we started throwing parties and having those guys perform, and then we were doing all kinds of promotional stuff that way.
Okay. Dope. Tell me, at this time, because you spoke about this earlier, though, around this time the split happened. I want to know how. You know, I've heard you tell the story somewhat, but I just want to ask you how. I mean, I heard the story. So first of all, I want to know how the split, you know, from what I heard, just over that can become just, you know, you're out of, you know, you left the company and everything, and then how did you feel after you left? Because at this time, like you just said, things are starting to pick up and blow up. And, you know, No Limit takes off after that. So tell us kind of what's going on at this point.
So, you know, I had told this story. I mean, you know, someone who's no longer with us, and I've told it so many times, that they had been left in New Orleans, kind of stuck. P was upset with them for a reason. I got him to the West Coast. He said he wanted to leave the group. I told him, I said, I would help you. You know, hindsight's 20/20. At that time, I mean, we were all cool, so I was thinking like, hey, whatever, I'll help you, whatever I can do to support you. And if I would have said, well, no, screw you, and kind of told P, hey, you know, he's trying to leave the group, screw him. Who knows what could have happened differently? But that's just not my way. It never was. So somehow he had talked to P and said I was trying to take over the company, and I was trying to, you know, take artists. And it was just this whole thing, and I was going to get this deal and all this stuff. And King George and I were doing this stuff, and And understand that King George and I we had a cool relationship, but we never had like a close relationship where I was like, oh, I'm going to take King George and I'm going to take these other artists and I'm either going to take over No Limit and the hostile takeover, or I'm going to, do my own label. That never happened because every dollar I was making was going back into the company because I had a piece of the company, So there was money that I was entitled to based on that. And then at that time, I had gotten, credit cards, for No Limit and all that stuff that I was doing because I was investing in myself and investing in the company. Because at that time, P and I were truly partners. So when there was this whole thing of like thought process that P said, I want my company back, and he was really into that. I want my company back. And I was just like, well, what are you talking about? We're doing this together kind of thing. And he was upset, and for whatever reason, I think the tough thing for me is we never had an argument. So we never had any problems. So he made a decision, like, okay, I'm going to pay you what I owe you, and then that's it. Well, the problem is he never paid me what he owed me, and there was a credit card that was run up, a six-figure credit card, that I never got compensated and had to pay. So when we split, he kind of left me stuck, if you will, with nothing. So what happened was he had told King George either if King George didn't beat me up, actually if King George didn't break my jaw, then he would then whatever Ed said or whatever all these different people said was true. And King, was like, why would I do that? That doesn't make sense. And why don't you believe me? I'd never do that. I've been loyal. We all been loyal. So, long story boring, because King George would not beat me up, he left King and was like, that was it. And King was more mad and hurt that he's like, man, after all the things we've been through together, all the things I've done to show you that I'm loyal, you would think I would do something like that. It's crazy.
But Tobin, my question, even after I asked you this, was going to be, how can, first of all, just a conversation, who obviously I didn't know him and P were that close, Ed, go from him just believing everything Ed said or whatever they talked about to trying to depart from his partner running this label. All the things you guys got invested in, all you did from one conversation that can make him come back and want to cut ties with you, and then over a conversation he had with Ed, and then secondly, I want to know how was it able just to be like he just done and nothing, like there was no paperwork involved, like how did that happen without with you being the vice president? Why was anything? I don't understand that part.
Well, see, first of all, the first part I don't understand either, because that's still confusing to me, because I haven't had a conversation other than the one confrontation we had after the split.
Right.
I haven't had a conversation with P about that. So that'd be something you'd have to ask him about that and why it went down the way it did. Right. The second part of it, I did have a contract with P, and the contract was I was to get a certain percentage of all the record sales of No Limits, and obviously I'd get a percentage of anything that Master P did because I was doing everything. I was his manager and I was running the label. So when he kind of basically said that's it, the last conversation we had before we had our confrontation was, I want my company back. You do your thing, I do my thing. My conversation was around, hey, what about this bill and these bills, and what about what you owe me? And he said, I'm going to pay you what I owe you, and that's it. So don't you worry about that. I'm going to pay you, and that's it. So that was the last conversation we had. I never got anything, and I was thinking we're going to work it out. We never did. So I had went to several different attorneys to try to basically say, hey, here's my contract, here's what I got. And most of them were kind of like him and Han, like they didn't want to, take it on. And I had one guy, the last guy I met with, he had said to me, he said, look, he said, right now, he's got everything he wants. He's real hot right now. He's got a big record company behind him, and you're going to pay me more money, and you're going to take more time trying to get this money than you're going to get. And I mean, at that point, what do I do, right? So you have to understand, too, at that time, I'm in debt because of the bills from No Limit. I'm in debt because of that. I got a baby on the way, you know, so that's where I'm at. So I got a family coming, and I'm in debt. And where am I gonna get $200,000 from, right? I need to figure out what am I gonna do, because P is no longer around. Anybody who was entertaining the fact of doing a deal with me or said liked how I handle business were not touching me, because P had to deal with priority, and he was at that time, you yourself said he was like a rocket. So King George was kind of like left stuck, because, and I think it was partially he was left stuck because P was like, you wouldn't do this to Tobin. I think the other piece of it was King was like really hurt that he would think that me and King were into doing anything. So what did we do next? It was like, okay, I need to make some money. King needed to make some money. Let's do an album together. So P was the one that kind of pushed us together to do an album. It's not like King George and I were ever best friends or we were brothers or anything like that. It was like we were two people that were stuck, and we were we're stuck in the middle of the ocean, and we both got some oars, and we're in a boat, and we just got to row together in order to get to shore. And that's really how that situation happened. So to reiterate or go back to your point, the first part of I don't know why, based on one conversation when we never had an argument, that's how it went down. Some folks say P probably just didn't want to pay me or whatever the case would be. I don't know. But for whatever reason, that's the direction he went, which was fine. I think for me, if I would have been compensated the way I was supposed to, I wouldn't have a problem with P. But I didn't, and I never, and 20 years later, it still hasn't happened. Never did.
Compensated.
So,
did you ever run across him again, or be able to contact him, or see him, talk to him?
I reached out to him several times. We did. There was a confrontation we did have where he had, we got into a fight, and it really was he had his guys jump me in Durant Square in Oakland, California. I got jumped, and that's the last time I physically saw Pete. And that was 1996. So understand, here's somebody that I thought we was family. We're doing these things, concepts, ideas that I was part of growing this business, and then all of a sudden we're not together anymore. So what did I do? Like I said, King and I came together to do the Life of a Kingpin album. So understand, nobody wanted a King George album because they did not, for whatever reason, did not think King George could carry a whole album. They weren't really thinking that he had the skill set to carry a whole album. I couldn't get anybody. There's two things. One is I couldn't get any distributor to pick it up, and I couldn't get any producer that would work with me on the back end, because at that time, King and I had enough money to pay a couple bills like rent, and that was it. We were just, we were where we were. So we found a producer who would produce the record with me. His name was Anthony A.K. Walker. He said he would do the record on the back end. We dropped The Life of a Kingpin. It wasn't selling. We found a distributor that would pick it up in Southwest Wholesale in Houston, Texas. The album wasn't selling. There was a distributor who did some COD stuff for me in Kansas City, and he paid me cash money for some albums. I got some posters and some different stuff done, and I went to King and I we came into San Antonio, and we went up and down the I-10. We went all the way to Jacksonville and came all the way back from Jacksonville back to San Antonio and flew back to California. And 4 weeks later, I got a call from Southwest Wholesale, said, man, we can't even keep these albums. We need more albums. I ordered more albums, cassettes and CDs to be shipped out, and some vinyl was shipped out. It kept selling. A few weeks later after that, it was on Billboard, and then they couldn't keep it in. It was so hot. And from there, that's when, after that time, we started dropping. Most of the albums that we were dropping were hitting Billboard because people knew who TC was, they knew who King George was, and we started working with different artists, and we were just dropping albums, a significant amount of albums from there.
Okay.
So,
and
that's kind of how that went.
And where? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that's how it went.
Go ahead, sir.
So once we blew up The Life of a Kingpin, everything else after that was pretty hot. Everybody wanted it, and then as we started to, look at doing other projects, whether they were compilations or having King on, being on other albums, other folks' albums, or doing shows, things just started to get hot from there, and we had a nice hot run of selling a lot of records.
Okay. And did you ever, with the success, did you ever get any like resistance from trying to push the album, being that P at this point kind of took off, and you had a lot of more power than you had before to try to derail anything you guys did, or was everything?
Well,
cool
yeah,
on that side?
Well, it really wasn't, because there were so many. To understand, when you put out albums and they hit Billboard charts, and at that time, if you were on Billboard charts, record companies want to talk to you. And what I didn't understand, and I found this out later, but what I didn't understand with all the albums that I sold, and being on Billboard charts after being on Billboard charts, I was like, man, I don't know how all these record deals would come to fruition and then they would just disappear. And I remember meeting with a record exec that I had a relationship with, and I said, man, I just don't understand it. I said, you guys are giving deals to folks that haven't sold a third of what I've sold. When you sell 80,000 records and you're on Billboard charts for several weeks, you would think most people would get, the deal of all deals. I mean, they were giving out $1 million deals to folks who sold less. But the problem was, and I was told by this person, that he kind of told folks that I was like this crook guy that was going, if they gave me any money, I was going to take the money and blow it, or I wasn't going to promote the records and all this kind of stuff. And this person told me, he said, well, if you tell people I tell you, I'll say you're lying, but this is straight up what's going on. Now, I don't know. This is third party telling me this, but it could be coincidental that all these major labels that wanted to meet with me, and I was flying in New York and LA and having these conversations, and then these deals would just dry up. It could be something like people like Andre Harrell. I had a deal on the table with Andre Harrell to do some stuff, including TV shows and everything, and then that dried up overnight. So when those type of things happen, when you're selling hundreds of thousands of albums and still no one's like willing to do that, I've got to believe there's some part of that, because even if you watch the No Limit Chronicles, the conversation piece said if you sign Cash Money at Priority, there's going to be a problem. So if he's saying that to Priority about Cash Money, why wouldn't I believe that he was telling folks that I was a person that was a crook and I was going to steal money and do all this stuff? And I always wonder why people believe that, because, P admittedly so said he was a hustler, and, sometimes he'd steal or rob, or sometimes he'd sell dope and all that stuff. And I didn't have that background at all. So I never understood why 100% people believed everything he said, but nothing I said, and I didn't have that in the background. I was a working class military brat who, went to college, had a college degree, and now I have a master's and I'm a professor. So my lifestyle was completely different. I didn't grow up in that environment. I had to kind of learn the streets and all that stuff because of being in the situation I was in. So am I frustrated? Were there ideas I had and things that I wanted to do that I would meet with record companies on? Absolutely. I was talking to record companies about, instead of giving me an advance in cash, advancing me in stock. Like I've met with folks like Steve Rifkin and talked about Sony and said, hey, man, instead of giving me an advance of a few $100,000, just give me that in stock. Give me half of my royalty payments in stock, and I'll figure out the rest. And folks were like, man, what are you talking about? You know, so when you start coming up with ideas that are different, clearly I wasn't a guy that was going to just mess off some money and
right.
You know, grab the bag and go. It wasn't even in my personality. So to you know, to kind of reiterate your point or to answer your question is, I don't know 100% if that was going on. I was told that by a record exec that I knew and trusted, and it wouldn't have surprised me because I was at that time. Me and my entertainment was selling so many records, it didn't make sense that I didn't have a deal on the table, or those deals were disappearing.
Right. So with this going on and there's no deal on the table, does this? What goes on after this? Is this what makes you kind of do other things? You have to rethink things. What do you guys do at this point?
Well, you know, we're selling records. We're still doing things. I'm doing deals with other artists and putting their projects out. And King, I'm helping King kind of develop his label, His Highness Records, and start that. And he's doing stuff. So at that time we were selling records. It didn't matter. So the reason why I just started to do other things, you know, as you get into the late 90s, record sales are starting to kind of drop as we get to 2000. You got the Napster, you got all that stuff. So the reason why I completely said, okay, I need to figure something else out to do, well, I did a distribution deal with Ichiban Records, you know, no money up front or anything, but they were pressing up CDs and cassettes for me and vinyl, and we were selling a lot of records. Well, they wound up going, you know, they wound up filing for bankruptcy, and they owed me over $400,000. So Southwest Wholesale, the same way in Houston, they owed me over $250,000. So when those guys filed for, you know, bankruptcy, I'm not going to say I didn't get any money because I did get a percentage of it, but I didn't get all the money that I was owed. So I would tell you, anyone who's running a business that's owed $650,000 in cash, it's really difficult to say, hey, let's go put out another record, right? So that's when I decided, like, hey, what's going to be my next steps? Because I had ideas about all kinds of things. So, you know, I had ideas about, you know, putting together movie projects and all these kind of things. And still, even though I was having the success, and, you know, putting out records like, you know, I worked with Lil Troy and you know, I worked with Lil Troy in putting out the Sittin' Fat Down South album with Wanna Be a Baller. That original album came out with me and my, I put that album out with Troy, and it originally came out through Me and My Entertainment. So we sold a lot of records before it went to Republic and Universal. In fact, if you probably ask somebody from Universal, it is their most profitable album they ever had to do. They didn't have to do anything because the record had momentum. So when I look at that, you know, at that time, I mean, we were selling so many records and making money, and, you know, things were going well. But then when you get in a situation where you got a, you know, distribution company like an Ichiban or a distribution company like a Southwest Wholesale that, unfortunately, they're not getting paid, and they're filing for bankruptcy. And I think Ichiban was a different story because, you know, the owners were divorcing, so they were, not only were they not getting paid money, you know, as a couple, they were all split, taking the money from each other, and then they wound up going, you know, bankrupt. And, you know, I got pennies on the dollar there, and I got pennies on the dollar at Southwest Wholesale. So that's when I decided I'm going to go back to graduate school. I'm going to go back and start working on, you know, other type of businesses, whether it's acquisition through computer hardware or, you know, starting a business and figuring that kind of thing out. So that's just really what made me kind of diversify what I do and realize that if any business that I do, if I could take the same concepts that I learned from E40's Uncle St. Charles, who E40 taught me, E40's Uncle St. Charles taught me, and P and E40 and SIBO and JT the Bigger Figure and Too Short, he taught all of us how to make money and go get this money in the distribution game and being independent. And if I could take all the concepts that I learned from St. Charles and some of that from P as well, learning from that situation, if I can go take that like I did with selling a lot of records and do that in business, in a standard business, I could really do some really great things. And I've been very fortunate I've been able to do that. I've been able to teach college as a college professor at Holy Names University in Oakland and have some great students and kind of mentor folks and help folks. I've been able to start businesses that help raise money for like Make-A-Wish Foundation and Grant Wishes. So I've been able to do those things and have some sort of success, and I owe all of that to the St. Charleses of the world. And even though my relationship with Master P is not a good one, or it's non-existent, there's some of that I learned from him, especially from a work ethic standpoint, learning what it takes to be successful and pushing yourself and pushing the limits and working as hard as possible, because you're not going to outwork a guy like Master P. So like learning from him to have that work ethic and understanding that we could work until midnight and then still be up at 4 or 5 in the morning the next day because we have work to do. I learned that work ethic and that concept, and I think that's helped me in just my career overall.
Mm-hmm. Right. With that being said, with all the P and No Limit stuff, what did you feel about the recently? Well, I'm sure that's why you've been doing a lot of interviews as well. But how did you feel about the No Limit Chronicles, which aired on BET? And then not only what you think about it, because it was a good documentary, but I mean, after the aftermath, when we start hearing all the other stories, that people have, such as yourself and so many of the artists, and you found out that nobody, really left too happy. You know what I mean? So what did you feel about that whole ordeal?
Well, originally, I'll say this. I think it was good to share the story of No Limit. And I think the deal is when I was asked to do that, because a lot of people have said, hey, you're doing that because you're trying to make some money or whatever. And I'm not peddling CDs and autographs like other artists, because I don't have any dog in the fight. I was asked to do the show 3 times. I turned them down twice. I was not interested in doing an ode to Master P. I mean, I got respect for him because, he did what he did. But I wasn't really interested in saying, oh, yeah, Master P he's the greatest thing in the world. And I was told that, no, this is really about No Limit Records, and you are a huge part of the foundation of No Limit, and that's why we want you part of the story. So it's not just for Master P. Everyone's going to have an opportunity to say their piece. Well, I met with them for 5 hours. So at first they wanted to meet for an hour, and then they started asking me questions and asking me about what happened, what didn't happen, were you there? We heard you were there when this happened, and all of these things that came. And I told the truth. Either I was there or no, I wasn't. That did happen or didn't happen. And after 5 hours, I really felt I did a good job of telling the real story. I told the good, the bad. I often talk about the positive things of Master P, but I also talk about the real story and the situation I was in, just like we talked about earlier. But I think the problem with the story is it really was an ode to Master P, because it didn't go deep into all of the other folks that made No Limit what it was. It didn't go into a lot of detail with what St. Charles did. It didn't go into a lot of detail with all the other folks that were part of it. So would I say was it entertaining? Absolutely, it was an entertaining. Would I say it's 100% accurate? There's a lot of stuff in there that was either glossed over or just didn't happen. But I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of rekindled people's feelings for No Limit and what we did and how we transitioned. I think there are a lot of folks who were not happy because they were either they hit the cutting room floor and didn't get the chance to tell their full story or tell their story, or some of the things that they said didn't get into the documentary that they thought was going to get into the documentary. So do I think it's entertaining? Absolutely. I think it's a very entertaining project. I think the episodes that we were on the first night had over 5 million viewers on BET, and it made it the #1 show. And I think it was number 2 or number 3 show on all of cable. So for 5 million people to, see the story and be interested in it, and it was #1 trending on Twitter. I mean, that's huge.
Right.
And it helps, it helps even the artists who are upset. It helps them tell their story and come out with it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, look, I was there at No Limit from 93 to 96. He put out 17 projects, whether they were singles or records, before I came on the scene. I know if you read The Big Payback by Dan Charnas, the 650-page book about the history of hip-hop, I'm in there as being one of the influential people of making No Limit to what it was. So at the end of the day, I feel good about that. I feel good about being a part of history, and I feel good that even in my own right, I was able to do something independently without any major deal, and be able to sell records with King George and do things like the Wet Boys and Luke Calhoun, the Ghetto Politician, and put out mixed CDs by guys like Mr. Mark and work with Franzen and Trace Dogg from the Bay Area and do their album, and then put out Lil Troy's album and have success, and I feel good about that. So I do think that the No Limit Chronicles was exciting, and it was fun, and a lot of people, got a chance to tell their story, but then there's a lot of people who are real frustrated. And there is a reason that from 96 to 99, there was this really run, and really 97, 98 was huge. 99 was kind of tapering off. And by 2000, it was, Master P was still popular, but he was going in a different direction. And there's a reason for that.
Right.
And I think, Beats by the Pound, those folks not being there and moving on, and honestly, they weren't part of the project, and they weren't interested in being part of the project. So when you don't have, and they're doing their own documentary, so when you don't have folks like that are influential, they are instrumental and influential part of No Limit Records, and not part of it. Doesn't tell them
That's the sound. That's the sound of No Limit. That's like same with Manny Fresh with Cash Money. That's the sound.
Exactly. And you're 100% right. So when they're not part of it, something's quite not right. And I think, for me, I was a little frustrated with my portrayal in the show, because if you look at it, there was either one instance, okay, I'm just the front guy with glasses and a suit, and then it kind of turned into like I was trying to take over the company and do all these things and steal artists and poach artists. And then my thought process was, well, which is it? Am I the diabolical genius that's taking over the artist and trying to take over the company, or am I just the guy, front dude in a suit with glasses who just happened to be there, and I lucked out and rode this wave? And I will assure you, just the fact that there were 17 projects put out before I got in the mix, and someone that I respect like St. Charles, who basically told P I should be the guy, and basically 6 months later we had some success, and some of it happened to do with the publicity we were getting, but the other portion of it was putting together an organization and putting a foundation together and being influential and saying, hey, we're not signing an artist deal, and also being part of having negotiation with folks and bringing people into the fold to say, hey, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So did I like the way I was portrayed there? Because folks are asking me like, well, wait a minute, why did you leave, or why did you try to take over the company? That doesn't even sound like you, because it's not. But I'm be honest with you now that, looking back on it, heck, I mean, you saw the series. I got quite a bit of screen time. So
right.
and that screen time has been, good for me. If you look at my Psycho Cider shirt was on. So, 5 million people, or probably 7 or 8 million by the time it re-aired and everything, got a chance to see Psycho Cider. I got more people asking me about Psycho Cider and what it is, and I'm able to talk about raising money, for the Special Olympics and do all of those things. And I think that's what's exciting, is that having all these interviews. Some people say, "Hey, TC, we believe you." Some people think I'm lying. People are going to think what they're going to think. I will reiterate what I told you before. I find it interesting how people think that somebody's 100% telling the truth when they flat out told you who they are and who they used to be. That they used to be a person who was a hustler. They used to be a person who used to rob people and do all these things. And all these folks who are, unhappy because things weren't quite right. And I'm a guy who never had that kind of situation before. So somebody's got to be the villain. And I felt that in the episode I was in, I was kind of painted as the villain.
Right. Yeah, you kind of got the bad end of the stick all the way as far as the way it's being told, from the other side towards you. You know what I mean? And it seems like you never had a voice, to let people know.
I didn't. I didn't. And I think that's the thing. When you don't have a voice, it is what it is. Go ahead. I'm sorry, G-Lew.
No, you're good. You're good. I hear you. I was just going to say, but still, you not having a voice, that doesn't mean you weren't doing things, because obviously you were still busy. Like you said, you became a professor. You're still doing things in the business on the back end, on the behind the scenes, and then you get into filmmaking, and these things. Like, how do you get into filmmaking? How does that take place to where you create a movie and do all these other things you're doing?
Well, I mean, it was just really, I've always had the whole concept of doing movies was back during my time at No Limit. So I had we had a guy who actually directed my movie, The Reverend Durong. His name is Dave Grisham. He's the one who he did the When They Gone video for us from 99 Ways to Die. He's the one who said, "Hey, you guys should do movies because you guys are starting to really make a move with this music. You should do a movie." So I talked to P about it, and he was kind of like, "Yeah, maybe in the future. I don't know. We don't want to, maybe in the future." So when we did the deal with Priority, we had an opportunity to go to the movie shoot for Friday, and when P saw that, that's when he was like, "Man, I think you're right. I think we could do this movie thing." So we started meeting during that time. We started meeting with the different film companies, and we got a poster done and all this stuff, and and we started meeting, and nobody wanted to pick it up. And what we discussed, and I told P, I said, "What does it matter? As long as we have a movie, it doesn't have to be great. We just have to have a movie." And we let the soundtrack push the movie, and the movie pushed the soundtrack. I said, how we're going to get people to jump on this, we'll tell people it's banned from theaters. So if you remember, when I About It came out, it said banned from theaters. And the reason why it said banned from theaters, because nobody wanted the movie, and it was a way for people to say, "Man, I got to get this. This is banned from theaters." And the soundtrack was so hot, it pushed the movie to the heights it did.
Right.
And that's kind of from that thought process, I always wanted to do movies or multiple movies. So I had an opportunity to meet a guy named Ken Wilson. He was the president of the Black Music Division of MCA, and he was doing his own thing. He also wound up working for J Records. And we talked, about doing a project. Actually, Andre Harrell and I were supposed to do a movie, and that kind of dried up. And I met a guy named W.E. Baker, Bill Baker. He was the producer of the original Friday. So when I went to him and said, "Hey, I want to do this movie," and he had told me, "Hey, do you have a script?" And I put a little script together. I wrote this kind of story outline in the script. D. Mark Grisham wrote the script. Him and I kind of sat down and wrote it. And when I talked to Bill Baker, he was like, he saw the script, he liked it. He said, "We need to tighten some things up on it, but I think we have something here." And I kind of put it in his hands because he was the guy who had the relationships with all those people. He was the one who found F. Gary Gray and all that stuff to do Friday and all that stuff. So I just let him do his magic, and I worked with Ken Wilson and his sister Donnice, who was the manager of different movie folks and different actors, and we brought all those folks together. Lester Bibbs, comedian Lester Bibbs, We thought he'd be a great fit for the lead role, and it worked out. We shot the movie. We put it together. We had Yo-Yo in it. We had the Mixon brothers, who the two big brothers. One played in Old School. The other brother played in was Hercules, who played in with the Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy. And they had been doing different TV shows and movies. Victor Tagunde, who was in movies like Can't Hardly Wait and and Crimson Tide, and he had been in a lot of stuff. Bill Lee Brown, who was in 90210 and played in General Hospital, all this stuff. So we made sure we had professional actors who knew what they were doing. I starred in the role. I had acting experience from school and being in plays and musicals and stuff, but I was smart enough to kind of like just put myself in there because I wanted to be in the movie, but I didn't put myself doing too much. People would be like, okay, you know how it goes, man. You put yourself to start a movie and they'd be like, this dude can't act. Because Pat was like, they was like, man, are you a comedian? I'm like, no, I just, I believe. I just trusted those folks who knew what they were doing. So when we did the movie and it was cool, we wound up releasing it on Amazon Prime. It was like the top 20 most downloaded movie for 2018, for the fourth quarter of 2018. It was popular. A lot of people watched it. So I was like, man, cool. And after that, it was just like I always wanted to do it. So I had the rights to the Two Live Crew movie through Chris Wan, Chinaman. Before he died, I had the rights to that movie, and I was shopping the Two Live Crew story to folks. A good friend of mine named Ed Hancock wrote a great script, and the biggest thing was getting the rights to the music. Lil Joe has the rights to the music, and he wasn't coming off of it. I met with all these different film studios who were really interested in the Two Live Crew, but had to get Chinaman together with Luke, and they were not on the same page because nobody wants to. You can't do a Two Live Crew movie without Luke, and you can't do a Two Live Crew movie without Chinaman. And then we couldn't get them together. Right. And then unfortunately, Marquise was not really involved in the movie, but he was going to be a part of it. Marquise is more on the Chinaman side, right? So it's kind of Luke, and then and then Chinaman and Marquise. But the original member who was on every album, who was the original member from day one, the only member is Chinaman.
Mr. Mix.
Was Chinaman. So he put. Okay. So
what about Mr.
Chinaman,
Mix?
Mr. Mix was there, but he was not an original member, and he kind of came in and came out. The one guy who never left, who was always there, was Chris. And so everybody knows when you talk about the Chinaman, they be like, oh yeah, the Chinese dude from Two Live Crew. And everybody, if you think about it, and everyone's got love for Marquise and Mix and those guys, but when you think Two Live Crew, you think of Luke and you think of Chinaman. That's just, you think of Chris and you think of, and that's the thing. It's like the Chinese dude whose arm's in the sling and Luke. So the problem is we couldn't get those guys together. And then, unfortunately, Chris had passed away, and Chris was trying to get this thing done quickly because he knew he was not doing well health-wise. And we were racing against the clock, and we couldn't get it done, and that's unfortunate because you can't do a Two Live Crew movie without the music, and you really can't do a Two Live Crew movie without Luke, and there was animosity between exactly, and there was animosity between those two, right? Like they would perform together, but they wouldn't talk to each other. So you could see them do a show together and they rocked the house and everything, but they wouldn't talk to each other. It was crazy how that went down. So unfortunately, when Chris passed away, that kind of got off the table. And then I've got a couple other scripts working on and trying to do the next movie. I was really hoping that the next movie was going to be the Two Live Crew story, but unfortunately not. So we're working on a comedy called Straight Outta Burbank about three 40-something-year-old ones. Yeah, it's about three 40-year-old guys who are one-hit wonders that are trying to go on the road. One's a stay-at-home dad, another's an insurance guy, and the other one is an assistant principal. So, we're working on getting that together. The
that
script's done.
Funny
and
already. It's out of Burbank.
It is funny, and I had I had Lester Bibbs in mind, and JB Smoove is a good friend of Lester's and a friend of mine, and we're working on trying to put something together, and you know how it is. No matter how close you are to folks want to make sure they get paid, so we got to make sure our money's right for it. But The Straight Outta Burbank is another movie written by Ed Hancock's friend of mine, and I think we've got something there, and we'll see how it goes.
Wow, that's big, man. You got so much going on. What else do we have going on that people need to kind of look out for, or that you got under the wraps? Because I know this COVID thing has kind of stopped a lot of stuff.
It shut down a lot of things,
maybe
man.
Change directions. Right. Go ahead.
I think for me, like with the, like I said, having the Psycho Cider shirt on when I did the No Limit Chronicles, people have been blowing me up from there. So Psycho Cider is a hard cider. It's made from apples. It's flavored hard cider. It's 6.7% alcohol. And we were doing really well before COVID hit because we were doing straight on-premise in kegs. We were selling kegs like crazy. And doing the same marketing concept I did when we were in the music business, we were just putting that together and doing that. So when COVID came, everything, a lot less people were out and about. So what we decided to do was move forward with cans. So we just rolled out cans actually last week. And we're doing cans, so we got a couple different flavors. We got a Mother of Dragon, which is a raspberry dragon fruit that no one else makes but us. And then we have a Kiwi Herman, which is a kiwi lime. And both Kiwi Herman and Mother of Dragons are really popular. And last week we rolled out cans, and they're just starting to get into retail stores in the state of California. And I'm working on getting licenses in other states so I can sell alcohol in other states. But right now we're just in California. So Psycho Cider, I'm doing that. And then I have, my own small YouTube.
Liquor.
Oh, yeah, this is liquor.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. You got to.
Big league, man. You in the big league, man.
You got to. Yeah, you do not want to. Hey, when you do these things, you got to work with the TTB and the ABC. You do not want to try to put any liquor out and not have a license. Boy, it's worse than the IRS. So you want to make sure you have that.
Right.
So anyone who's listening to your show who wants to get into the beverage business, if they're doing alcohol, make sure you get your TTB license. And once you get your TTB license, make sure you get your ABC license so you can make sure that you are covering yourself. You do not want to be in a situation where you don't have the right license for that. So, yeah, I had to go through and get a liquor license to get that done.
The homie TC said, hold on, let me make this clear. Now, let me make this clear before we continue. I don't want the people calling me, man.
Yeah, I don't want them thinking, man.
No, that's big for you to be doing that. That's almost as big as, like, I was going to ask you, did you think being in the state of California about the cannabis thing, which is big too, but shit, you're in the alcohol business, so you're doing shit just as good, I would say. Well, that's a good business.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I'm happy doing it. I think it's great. I think the concept of what we're doing is great. Before COVID, we did a show called Psycho Fest, which was a huge show here in the Bay Area in California, and we had a DJ and music, and we were doing videos. We had a step and repeat banner. We had a huge party that was a huge success, and everybody has just been showing us love since. And I think really just being on the No Limit Chronicles has really piqued everyone's interest and wondering, like, what's that big X on your shirt? And people like, man, and folks are even like, I had a couple people said, man, that is the biggest coup since LL did FUBU on Gas. And I said, well, that was kind of my thought process. I was copying LL, but because, BET, a lot of times they blur things, like MTV blurs things, BET blurs things, and they didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is beautiful. I love it. So
that was big.
So it was, it felt good.
That's the most you could ever get.
Absolutely. So it's like when you think about beverage business and what that looks like, it's getting into retail stores, getting into bars and restaurants, and then kind of building your brand from there and going from state to state to state. And then, we'll eventually see if, you never know. There might be an Anheuser-Busch who's looking to get into the hard cider, to really jump into hard cider. And the difference between what we do and what other folks do, low sugar, man, 3 grams of sugar, 4 grams of sugar. You go get an Angry Orchard, no disrespect to what they're doing, but that's about 22 to 26 grams of sugar. So if you go with us, everything is all natural, all the flavors are natural, and the taste is so smooth. You think it's sweeter than it is. It tells your mind that it's sweeter, but it's not. And then I reached out to Absolute Vodka because I wanted to create a drink, which I have, but I'm trying to get their permission because you want to do it the right way, is to do an Absolute Psycho. So you do Absolute Psycho, imagine you go into a bar. That's what I'm trying to do, is work with Absolute Vodka right now and try to do that. So, I'm just trying to, do things the right way and grow the business and do that stuff. And then, I work with certain folks and just kind of point them in the right direction. I have a lot of folks that are always asking me, hey, will you manage me? Will you, I'm starting a label. Will you consult? I don't do any of that stuff. I'm retired from the game, but there are some folks that I do. There's an artist named Kazi, Cozzzy, that I kind of did some projects with him before and helped him out. There's also Ben Trax is an EDM producer that's real hot from the Northwest, from Seattle. I've kind of done some stuff with him, and he's done some music for some of my videos that I've done for Psycho Cider. And then, the last thing that I really focus on and I'm really doing is this Costen and Hammer Network, where we're doing shows, educational shows, and trying to raise money for the Special Olympics with my boy Josh Hammer, my former student. We raised $10,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and now we've gone from the Make-A-Wish Foundation to the Special Olympics. So that's really what the focus is trying to raise money for the Special Olympics and try to get as much money as we can for those folks. So that's where we're at, man. That's what I'm doing, man.
Wow, that's big. That's incredible. That's why I just wanted that whole other, because you have so many other things going on, and like you said, it was actually a blessing in disguise for, like you said, as far as the No Limit Chronicles, regardless of the situation with P. You know what I mean? So that's a beautiful thing. Hey, before we continue, let me take a couple callers if you don't mind. A couple people want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out. All good. All right, let me go to the phone lines. My main man calling down in San Diego. Hello.
What's going on, man? Rev Ali here, man, checking in, listening to your show, man. I didn't even catch who you was interviewing, but you ain't even got to say nothing. I'm just going to call him the voice right now because he's saying some real stuff about how people can get hooked up in the alcohol business and about their licenses and everything like that, and how to go, about getting their product out there. That's good information, man. I just want to say this, though, to you, brother. One of my brothers I grew up with, his name is Robert Pierce. And Robert Pierce, he tried to come out with a alcohol. It was called Carnival, and it was green. It was green, and he had it for a few years. He was out there promoting it, and stuff like that. I didn't like it because he was basically. No, I'm not talking about the alcohol, no, but just that he was saying that black-owned business and stuff like that. I didn't like that he did that because now he don't even have the product anymore. He had to sell it to get whatever money they could out of it before they took a big loss. But I told him, I said, Robert, you had an Asian dude that we grew up with across the street. His last name is Kim. I said, why you didn't go and make him the forefront of the alcohol business and let it blow up before you start telling people it was you? You know what I mean? A lot of times I think, sometimes we get twisted up and caught up in that black-owned business, and sometimes that put an arrow into your whole business before you even get off the ground, man, sometimes, man. So I think, I don't know, it was just my idea that I thought he should have went and got the Asian dude we grew up with and let him think it was his business. What you think about that?
Well, I think some people kind of do that. I mean, I'll tell you, there were times that I walked into the door when I was in the music business, and I had a white guy with me who just to basically kind of, for whatever reason, make it seem like, okay, he's part of what we're doing, even though he was just a guy, because I was always told, like, hey, if you're a white guy, go get you $5 million tomorrow. So I see exactly what you're saying, but I think right now it's like, black-owned, there's nothing wrong with being a black-owned business. And I think there's, that your buddy had a sense of pride to want to promote that he had a black-owned business. Sometimes black folks support black folks, and sometimes we don't, and that's the unfortunate part of it. I think the biggest thing that I get frustrated with when I hear our people talk about, their problems with black businesses, let's just say, for example, let's say your buddy was a baker. Let's say your buddy, messed up on someone's cake for their anniversary party or something. Well, the average person will say, man, that's why I don't fool with black businesses. I'm never going to another black baker. Now, if it happened to a white baker, Asian baker, someone's not going to say, well, I'm never going to another white baker, another Asian baker. They just do that with black folks. So I think your buddy, by him saying he's a black-owned business, sometimes there's funding there for black businesses. Sometimes it also depends. Is he just a black businessman, but he is doing something that's for all cultures, or is he doing something specifically for black people or culture of black people, right? And that's something to think about, and I don't know what he was. Like my beverage, for example, Psycho Cider, it's more for everyone because it's a flavored cider that and the price point's a little bit higher, so it's not necessarily, it's not just a black drink, it's a drink for everyone. And if your friend was trying to do a drink for everyone, there's nothing wrong with him saying it's a black business. And that's just my opinion on that. But I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from because some people look at it that way. They're like, oh, man, black business, and sometimes people turn their nose up to it, unfortunately. But I think if the man has a sense of pride of who he is and where he comes from and what he does, I don't think there's anything wrong with him talking about, being a black business.
Right. I appreciate that, great brother, and I appreciate what you're doing, man, and you sound very enthusiastic, and you got a lot of passion, and you talk loud, not loud like loud, but I'm talking about loud like you saying something, man. So I appreciate you. Rev Ali got love for you, man. I'm down here in San Diego, man. So if you ever need somebody to go out here to these distributors out here and help you, man, you call me, man. I'll make sure they get it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for the love, man. You be safe, all right?
All right, much love, G-Lew and Queen Jean. I don't know if she on there, but G-Lew, I did my push-ups today, man, because I'm trying to make sure, I always say, don't let your big arms look like your wrists. God bless you, man.
That's what.
That's good one, man.
That's my guy right there, man. Shout out to Rev Ali, man, down in Dago. Yeah, that's my guy. We had a couple more callers. They checked out. Okay, anybody want to speak, press 1. We have Brother TC with us, man. Mr. Tobin Costen, former VP, No Limit Records, currently a professor, a movie producer, beverage owner, entrepreneur. I mean, so many other. What else did we miss that you're doing?
No, the Costen and Hammer Network. We're doing educational shows and fun shows, and we're trying to raise money for the Special Olympics in Northern California. So if you get an opportunity, any of the listeners get an opportunity to raise money for their community, no matter what it is, please do so. Give back to the community. It's so important, man.
That part. And we're going to get all that information right here after this. Let me go to the phone lines. We got somebody calling from the Pac Northwest. 509, caller, hello.
Hey, what's up? This is GMS. What's happening, Tobin?
Oh, man, GMS. What's up, baby?
Right here.
I know, man. GMS. I'm doing well, man. How you doing, man? I know we text every once in a while, but I haven't talked to you in forever. But GMS was my partner on the rap attack that we did over in Spokane, Washington at KGU. So I learned all the skill set of mixing on 4-track and 8-track and mixing live from GMS and another cat named Johnny V. Both of those guys really honed my skills in mixing, as well as Nasty Ness from Nasty Mix Records. I learned a lot about mixing and becoming a DJ and becoming an announcer and all that stuff from folks like GMS, man. And it's always good that GMS is doing great things, man. Man, I'm telling you, one of the greatest mixers out there, man. Grand Mixer GMS, man, from the Pac Northwest, baby.
Wow.
Hey, thank you. Hey, I want to say, hey, Tobin, super cool guy. He was always honest. If he said something, you could trust what he said, and he would always do what he said he was going to do, and we both helped each other a lot. And, hey, Tobin, it was an honor to work with you, man. It's an honor to know you and to call you my friend. So, and I'm really proud of you, all the stuff you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
And
that Venmo's coming to you after the show, so I appreciate you.
All right.
Oh, man.
Hey,
You're
GMS,
looking out, man.
Hey, GMS, before you leave, tell the people what you got going on these days, right quick, before you get out of here, man.
Okay, so I'm the mixer for Nasty Ness on K-Fox Night Beat, and I've also got I'm coming up on Sway in the Morning. I'm going to be mixing on there, so that's really cool. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I might as well. Yeah, so you're going to get this first. I'm actually working on some remixes for Terry B. I don't know if you remember Terry B from back in the Easy.
Terry
she was on
B.
Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's got a new
Terry
record
B.
that's coming out. So I just and just finished one of her tracks. She's back, so that's really cool. So I'm trying to stay as busy as possible. And if you need any help with any of the hard cider up here in Spokane, let me know.
I would definitely do that, man. I'm working on my license up there. There's a club up there a buddy of mine owns called the Globe downtown. My boy Scott Wilburn, he wants to do a big party there, so I am definitely working on getting my license up in Washington. I reached out to my attorney to figure that out, so hopefully soon, and then when this COVID thing dies down a little, we'll just throw a big party, and maybe you could be in the mix over there and DJ GMS, because you are a legend. You're a legend and a scholar, my man. I appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Hey, I'm there. You don't even have to ask. I'll whatever you need. You got it.
I appreciate you, man.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Hey, you guys have a good night. And I love. Hey, G-Lew, I love the show. I love all your interviews and everything. Nice. Yeah, what you doing? All right. You guys have a good one.
Much love.
Okay.
Shout out to Spokane, man. My brother just left there, man. He's moving back to California, but he's lived there for a few years. So shout out to Spokane.
Yeah,
okay.
Shout out to Spokane, Washington, baby.
Hey, what's his name?
CeeLo.
Okay, CeeLo. Yeah, what's up, CeeLo?
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Yeah, he's listening.
All right, you too, GMS.
Much love. Peace.
All right. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's
my
guy.
Shout
out to CeeLo. I try to give love. Shout out to Spokane. Yeah, he's a legend. He's a legend, man, up there, man. So shout out to him, man. Glad he could check in. That's love right there.
Absolutely.
That's love. So, Tobin, tell the people all the, because I know it's a lot of stuff you got going on. We mentioned it all, but tell the people the handles, how they can get at you about all those individual projects or how they can get at you personally. I know you're on the gram and all these other places, but tell them where they can get at you regarding all these, everything you're doing and if they want to be a part of it or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can be reached. You can get me on my website at TobinCosten.com. That's TobinCosten.com. Just plain and simple. On Instagram, I'm at Tobin Costen. You can find me. There. You can search me on Twitter as well. I think if you're looking, once you see me, you'll see Psycho Beverages. And that's XAIKO Beverages. That is on Instagram. And then you can also check out the website, which is sippsycho.com. And that's SIPXAIKO.com, sipppsycho.com. And you can find me there. So the best way is most people reach out to me on my website and leave me an email. I will say, if you leave me an email, leave your phone number, please. Because a lot of times I'll get an email and I'll email people back a couple times because I want to make sure they know I get back to them. And then it might go in your spam, I don't know, but then folks just disappear. So if you want to hear from me, leave me a phone number. I could text you or call you. I'm usually pretty good about getting back to everybody no matter what. Sometimes people are like, man, I can't believe you actually called me, or I can't believe you actually texted me. I mean, I've even had friends from high school reach out to me and they're like, I don't know if you remember me. I'm like, man, we were not in high school that long ago, bro. I remember you. So I think after the Chronicles, too, there was a cat that's like, man, we were in third grade class together, man. I don't know if you remember. I told my wife I knew you, but she didn't believe me, kind of thing. I was like, man, tell your wife you know me. We were in third grade together. I got you.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, I guess those are all the handles. So anybody out there, you want to get at the homie about any of these things? Oh, tell them where they can catch the movie at as well, because now it's on YouTube, I think.
Oh yes. Oh, I'm sorry about that. So the movie's called The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right. It stars Lester Bibbs, myself, and Yo-Yo, as well as the Mixon brothers. You can get that on Amazon Prime. So if you look for The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right on Amazon Prime, you can find it there. Or actually, I put it up for free on YouTube. I'm doing that for a few months just to give people an opportunity to see it. You just look at the Costen and Hammer Network, and Costen and Hammer, just like it sounds. You can find it on there on YouTube. But if you look up The Reverend Do Wrong Ain't Right, you will find it on YouTube, and check it out. It's an hour and 15-minute movie. It's funny. It's produced by the same people who did Friday, and I think you're going to love it. Yo-Yo's in the movie. She's fabulous. So, and many of the people that you see in the movie, you'll recognize. You'll be like, oh, I've seen that person before. Oh, yeah, I know who that person is. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's a great movie, and it's well done.
Wow, that's what's up. And is there anything else that's going on that we did not speak about, or that we didn't mention that you want to put out there?
Well, if you're looking, for those of you who are looking to further your education, I will tell you, look at Holy Names University, hnu.edu. We are a small school in our 152nd year in Oakland, California, up in the Oakland Hills. And we are, it's a great opportunity for you if you're interested in business, if you're interested in nursing, if you're interested in, psychology. It's a great school to go to. And if you're looking to learn business marketing, sports management, hnu.edu, apply. We have financial aid. There's opportunity for you to learn. With COVID, we're doing a lot of stuff online now, but hopefully we get through COVID and there'll be a little bit face-to-face. But in our classes, we have student-teacher ratios about 11-1, so you're really going to get some hands-on experience, and I think you'll learn a lot. So if you're looking for to further your education, hnu.edu. You can definitely apply, get to know folks, and come on board. And I promise you, you're going to learn a lot. It's a great school.
That's what's up right there, Professor Costen, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Live on the G-Lew show tonight, man. Great interview, great conversation, man. I thank you for your time, man, because just incredible, man. Incredible information, incredible story that you have, and so many great things that you're doing. I'm just glad, you've been able to get your voice out there now and, tell the story, in your own words,
Yes, and people like you, G-Lew, who will at least give me an opportunity to have a platform to chat. I mean, most of the time, I like talking about the good things that I did, whether at No Limit or whether with Me and Mine Entertainment and working with the artists that I work with and having the success on Billboard and being a part of the foundation of sending albums gold and platinum. And that's really what, to me, is important. Right. Folks always want to talk about the breakup between P&I, and you're always going to have to do that, right? No matter what. When you break up with somebody or you split with somebody, you have to.
Right, but to me, that's the juicy stuff. And even if you go online now and you come up, the interviews, that's the main thing you see. But to me, the greater part of this interview and story was all the other things that you were doing, really, that blew me away. Yeah. You see, even my guy Ali called and just loved. Once I heard about the things you're doing with the beverage industry, it just blew me away. So to me, all the other things you're doing are much greater than that small part, even though that's big because you're a part of history. But you're doing so many other great things, you know what I mean? So
I'm just blessed, man. I'm blessed to have people that, I appreciate that. I'm blessed and I'm happy about, what I'm doing. That's why it's like, I'm not, many of the artists that are out there, they're still trying to do shows to make money. They're still trying to perform. They're trying to sell their autograph or T-shirt or whatever the case may be, and that's just not what I'm doing, And I think, I'm a college professor. That's what I do. I teach folks. I consult with folks from a business perspective, and then I try to sell cider to the world and then raise money for charity. I mean, that's my life, and that's how it is, and I'm happy living it. So I always say this thing all the time, a hashtag. I say my life is dope because I do dope things, and that's just the way I feel. I have a dope life, and I have great things going on, and I'm just very blessed to have touched so many students' lives over the last, more than a decade. I've been teaching for 13 years, and I also used to, coach sports and do all that kind of stuff too. So I've been in academia for 20 years, basically, off and on. And being able to see my students now are attorneys, and some of them are doing really great things in technology, and some of them are running their companies, and some folks I've been able to introduce them to some influential people to help, expand their careers. So that's what this thing is all about, is how do we help people? How do we make people see that there's more to life than, what you were in the past? Because many artists, sometimes they still think they're as big as they were in 1999 or 96, and they're not. And there's the ebbs and flows. Like, everyone has ebbs and flows to their career. I mean, you think of someone like a Snoop Dogg. As great as Snoop Dogg is, he's kind of had to change his life and do different things to still have popularity. Do the television shows and hosting and performances and all of those things. Even someone like LL Cool J, who was a huge star at one point, not that he's still not a star, but now he's into acting and he's doing different things and doing books and all that stuff. You got to change the game, because if you think people are still checking for you for your song from 1996, 1997, or 99, it's just not happening. You got to continuously evolve and do something different. And I think that's the key. And those folks that evolve, they're happy with their lives and they're successful. And those folks that don't, they struggle. And that's the unfortunate piece of it. And hopefully eventually they'll figure out what they want to do and how they want to do. You do.
You have to have good teams behind you, people telling you the right things to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You are 100% right, G-Lew. That's 100% right. So, I love what you do, man. You always give out people opportunity, a platform to talk. I think that's fabulous, and I think, for me, spending this time with you has just been really good, and I appreciate that too. So some people like the juice, and I don't mind. I mean, I just tell the truth. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. But I think ultimately it's really about me focused on, doing the things that I do, and that's trying to affect people's lives positively, trying to support folks. And then at the same time, everyone's got to make a living somehow, and I just enjoy selling Psycho cider all day, every day.
That's right. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir.
My man. TC, y'all, Tobin Costen. Once again, follow him on Instagram. Tell him once again, one more time, where they can follow you right now, and they can get everything else from there, I guess.
TobinCosten.com, TobinCosten.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Tobin Costen. Just send me a message. I'll try to get back to you. If there's anything I can do to support you, I will do my best to support you, or at least point you in the right direction, some folks to talk to, and, go from there. But, yeah, you can always reach me, Tobin Costen, or TobinCosten.com, or Tobin Costen on Instagram. Either way, you can find me. I'm around.
There he is. Professor Costen, y'all. Okay. Once again, thank you, sir. Great interview, great conversation. Thanks for all the love. Can you please, we'll do that later. I'm going to get a drop from you. I guess I can get that from you later. Once again, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, BTP Media Group, for making it happen. 93 Tweed FM-ism every Thursday night. Dee Harrison, Ladies of Football League. Shout out to my co-host, the lovely Miss Queen Jean, who's out there, man, dealing with family issues. So our blessings and prayers are going out to her family. Shout out to Queen Jean and everybody else who tuned in. Yes, sir. My man, thank you again, man. Great show. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, G-Lew. Appreciate it. Sounds good. Be safe.
Same to you, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Once again, man, peace and love. Once again, shout out to my guest for the evening. The legendary TC, former vice president, No Limit Records, was there from 93 to 96, the pivotal years of No Limit Records, which when they took off and soared. And later on, exactly, obviously, continued success. But TC was there. You heard the story. If you miss anything, you can go back and listen to this interview. It's going to be back up on Blog Talk Radio. check out our YouTube channel as well. I have this posted on the G-Lew Show YouTube channel. It'll be up there as well. Check out our lives we do as well. After this, we're going to talk about this Breonna Taylor thing. We're going to be on there live after we go off on YouTube again. And, yeah, man, it's the G-Lew Show. Westside Wednesdays is the G-Lew Show podcast as well.
It's King MC. Thanks for tuning in to the G-Lew Show on Westside Wednesdays, hosted by G-Lew, our sponsor BTP Media and 93 Tweed FM Ism. Much respect.
Yeah. This is Kev Mack, owner of all Hood Publications, Kev Mack Videos. I'm with G-Lew on Westside Wednesday.
Shout out to Kev Mack. We got some new music fresh off the press from my boy Fitzgerald, you know, the voice of Kev Mack Videos. He dropped this off to me, so I'm going to drop it off to you. Shout out to Fitz. Bama. ATL.
Real nigga. Son got it started. Real nigga. Oh, yeah. I live by the real nigga. In this life that we choose, I live by the real nigga rules. Come take a walk in my shoes. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love, I pay dues. I live by the real nigga rules. Don't get it fucked up and confused, yeah. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love. Family members fakers, all the snitches, cake bakers, Niggas catch the vapors when you trying to get some paper, Critics, underraters, haters, only motivators, Crocodile smile, pull the caper indicator, Don't do me no favors, I stand on my own pimpin', Shoot my own pistol lane, gotta get counted business, Machiavelli presence, I be reppin' all this ride, okay? I love California, but I can't fuck with them politics. Guess it's just the same in the neighborhood I claim. That drops out on your name, that's that lemon pepper pain. Smoking on some broccoli, that sipping got me sloppy. If it was 95, they would have been that kid. In this life that we choose, I live by the real nigga rules. Come take a walk in my shoes. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love, I pay dues. I live by the real nigga rules. Don't get it fucked up and confused, yeah. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love. We heard you was telling, turning in convicted felons, Pulled up and we read him, yeah, we busted cerebellum, You know how it goes, never go against the code, Since I'm down the road, cause LaDaniel never told, Rolling, reminiscing while I'm navigating trenches, Everything was taught to be, I never win against it, Nigga, what you know about granddaddy, lead the dope house. Stood up like a man, they ain't never take the whole route. Gangsta and intelligent, this ghetto shit was heaven sent. Real street niggas don't give a fuck who elected president. Smoking on this broccoli, this sipping got me sloppy. If it was 95, they would have been the killed. In this life that we choose, I live by the real nigga rules. Come take a walk in my shoes. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love, I pay dues. I live by the real nigga rules. Don't get it fucked up and confused, yeah. I live by the real nigga rules. Hey, love.
Yo, this is West Coast hip hop pioneer General Jeff. Thanks for tuning in to the G-Lew Show on Westside Wednesdays, hosted by G-Lew. Our sponsors are BTP Media and 93 Tweed FM Ism. Yeah, boy.
Sounds get laid down on Westside Wednesdays, OG Sundays, Flashback Fridays. We're cruising with G-Lew, fabulous lowrider oldies. So just let me introduce myself. I'm Tweed Cadillac, baby. I drink up all the Hennessy you got on your shelf. We got to keep it fly, PI, and you know why.
touchdown in the LAX. 745, 747 jet. Exit off the plane, baggage claim my check. Then it's straight to the Hummer, limousine, it's a stretch. Straight to the strip, Hollywood sunset. Weather good, leather and wood, we on deck. Cushion the air, Perrier filled glasses. Headed out west, out to Calabasas. Silicone titties, suntans and fake asses. California lifestyle of the upperclassmen. But I'm hood with it, Rosecrans, Crenshaw, Fox Hill, Forward Hill, Slauson, Grandpa, Pico, Broadway, Hawthorne, Carson, Western, Firestone, Sheriff's, Arson. You and Stepchild, we got next. Giving California love up for LAX. I just touched down in the LAX. Got a big W on my chest. Summertime, beaches, big booties and crests. Let me grab my luggage off of the jet. And my Gucci double bag filled up with wrecks. Black Escalade, my security in the back. I'm in the Maserati in front of that. Cruising the boulevard, shopping on Sunset. What I see is what I get. And what I buy, you can't get. Way up Long Beach, or if you Inglewood, we brought Chuck Taylor's rep your hood. Push in the air, nice summer breeze, green palm trees, Hollywood dream, low rider team, TMZ, reality TV, no six, no C's, rose bottles, Ciroc and Sprite, Nicki Minaj, yeah, I'm living my life with a California raised and Caucasian tonight. We on top of the mountain looking down at the light.
Captain once again. As we make our descent into Los Angeles, we hope you had a pleasant flight. The weather conditions are clear blue skies at 126 degrees, and we'll be in the terminal in less than 30 seconds.
Reality rap. You feel me? They say that time will reveal the truth, but in the meantime, I'ma give the real to you. Illuminati means the illuminated few. Murder was the case, and we go ask Snoop. Now they wanna try to brainwash the youth, the same way they did back in '92. I don't falsify the truth, I just state the facts. This ain't the swag shit, homie, this reality rap. Check 1 2 1 2. Give a shout out to the bottom boys, what they do. Give a shout out to the West, so I thought you knew. This shit is deeper than rap, I thought I told you fools. But since you weren't listening, I tell you again. Time will reveal from beginning to the end. Time never heals all the deadliest sins. For many friends got behind many men. But as the world turns, I just burn this hill, trying to get my mind off of all the shit I'm in. Shout out to my homies locked down in the pen, who ain't never coming home cause they got a life sentence. Shout out to Javon, Martin, Malcolm, and Pop. JMJ, Big Took, can't forget Big Pop. They ain't get to see the bullets, all they heard was the shots. We ain't hear the ambulance, all we seen was the cops. It's a cold world, homie, so you better stay hot, because the minute that you're not, they coming straight for your spot. All I do is drop jewels, homie, state the facts. This ain't that swag shit, homie, this reality rap. They say that time will reveal the truth, but in the meantime, I'ma give the real to you. Illuminati means the illuminated few. Murder was the case, and we go ask Snoop. Now they wanna try to brainwash the youth, the same way they did back in '92. I don't falsify the truth, I just state the facts. This ain't the swag shit, homie, this reality rap. No peace, they killed the homie Trey, let his killer walk free. Then gave his gun back in the same week. Then they wonder why the people screaming fuck peace. I don't rap for the clubs, I rap for the streets. The drug shit, I did that back in '93. The gang shit, I did way back in '89. When the shit was really real, you had to push a real line. Fast forward to today, the whole thing's changed. That's why I had to switch to a whole new lane. The game ain't the same as it used to be. Lanes running around now I ain't used to see. I speak the truth when I talk on the beats, homie. Ever since the youth, I've been out in these streets, homie. And still hold my own on this microphone, stating the facts. I bring it back, this reality rap. They say that time will reveal the truth, but in the meantime, I'ma give the real to you. Illuminati means the illuminated few. Murder was the case, and we go ask Snoop. Now they wanna try to brainwash the youth, the same way they did back in '92. I don't falsify the truth, I just state the facts. This ain't that swag shit, homie, this reality rap. Reality rap. Reality rap. Reality Reality rap.
This is B12. You're tuned in with G-Lew and Westside Wednesdays. Stay tapped in.
It's Westside Wednesdays, the G-Lew Show, bitch. OG music.
The West Coast is back, motherfuckers. Now how gangsta is that? Bitch.
Family broken, so I stand with my niggas. Showed up to every shootout, but I ran for my feelings. Time for those, I got a plan to get millions. Whoever don't agree, I see you back at the buildings. That's why I never let y'all act like a victim. That's why I never let y'all kill my ambition. You weren't built for the mission. Park my colors in the back of the village. Remember Tony started washing them dishes. It was all a decision. Fast died, he took a part of me with him. Part broken like my artery missing. Just fuck all of you niggas. Team broke, they can't harvest you nigga. Swore shit, it got a heart to it, nigga.
You swore know you won't hold 'em. You swore know they have to count on you. All that pressure they bestowed on. Pray my son never face what I go through. And a nigga that get it don't wear the crown right. And if it be feeling like what it sound like. Now my life was a struggle and it get worse, I ain't complaining about it. I just can't never feel the same about it. My life built on damage, ain't understanding, can't call family, no. Got crossed by my closest, I ain't gon' show too much emotion, no. My little one call my phone, I pick her right away. I know I'm living wrong, but it's the right way. I was too busy trying to get heavy, I was lying away. A lot of niggas that came in with me ain't on my side today. I've been trying to live with some of these songs in case I die today. Every time I need something lean on, I drink that spot away. So it don't feel how it feels to me. Cause I've been through it and it did what it did to me. I trusted you and that was big for me. This my little partner, you do that big for me. And I ain't never jumped in my feelings out here. You swore know you wanna hold 'em. You swore know that I can count on you. All that pressure they bestowed on. Pray my son never face what I go through. And a nigga that get it don't wear the crown right. And if it be feeling like what it sound like. Now my life was a struggle and it get worse, I ain't complaining about it. I just can't never feel the same about it.
Mathematical mode, marathon and making moves taken. The heartbreaking news made major breaking news. Nephews, nieces, siblings see, they confused. Waking up shaking, aching, praying that it's April Fool's. Chosen child from the Nile down, stakes is huge. Snakes and fakes straddling the gate, it's too late to choose. Through violent visions gave victory, paid your dues. Motivated, demonstrated elevated views. Truths don't die, we multiply. I ain't make the rules. Self-medicate, meditate, and celebrate the blues. Neighborhood, roller coaster, you can take the cruise, I'm good. Blue laces, suede Puma's favorite shoes. Jesus to the generations, you never save me on my babies. Most beautiful gift Pluto ever gave me. For such a precious life, who decides price? I couldn't feel the slide twice, cause they crucified Christ.
You swore know they have to count on you. All that pressure they bestowed on. Pray my son never face what I go through. And a nigga that get it don't wear the crown right. And if it be feeling like what it sound like. Now my life was a struggle and it get worse, I ain't complaining about it. I just can't never feel the same about it. My life built on damage, ain't understanding, can't call family, no. Got crossed by my closest, I ain't gon' show too much emotion, no. My little one call my phone, I pick her right away. I know I'm living wrong, but it's the right way. I was too busy trying to get heavy, I was lying away. A lot of niggas that came in with me ain't on my side today. I've been trying to live with some of these songs in case I die today. this time I need some lean on, I drank that spot away. So it don't feel how it feels to me. Cause I've been through it and it did what it did to me. I trusted you and that was big for me. It's my little partner, you do that big for me. And I ain't never jumped in my feelings out here. People know you want no food on me. I used to know that I could count on you. All that pressure they bestowed on me. Pray my son never face what I go through. And a nigga to get it, don't wear the hero right. And if it been feeling like what it smell like. Though my life was a struggle and it get worse, I ain't complain about it. I just can't never feel the same about it. Get up out the bed and grind, cause my family has got to eat. See all the haters want me dead, cause I stay up on my grind and putting prices on my head. I got that money on my mind, yeah, yeah. Think I finally made it, failure means success.
Yeah. When failure meets success in that moment in your life when you feel no longer stressed in. Born in the struggle, so you knew no of a hustle sense. You was on the block and see the shooter get shot in. Then your past catches up with you. Snakes in the grass, but you don't see them till they up on you. Blowing money fast, it's hard to keep up with the revenue. Cause every day that pass, somebody asking for a favor too. It's kinda hard trying to keep up with the Joneses. That's why I mind my business now and stay away from phonies. Haters in my face, disguise acting like my homie. If it wasn't for this rap thing, they probably wouldn't know me. This is God's plan, homie, it ain't up to me. I'll just play the messenger and give you my delivery. We the ministry, OMG, we lyrically blessed. The result of failure meeting success.
I gotta get it, and it's inside of my reach, then I'm gonna stretch in the morning, get up out the bed and grind, cause my family is just to eat. See all the haters want me dead, cause I stay up on my grind and putting prices on my head. I got that money on my mind, yeah, yeah. Think I finally made it, failure means success.
Now we on the verge of getting money. As the world turns, we emerge in the money. But well, in the cycle, we preserving the money. So I'll be damned if I let somebody take something from me. Forever home, I grown man. Failure met success, now I'm blessed with my own plan. Started from the bottom, now we overlook the city view. Every day's a struggle, so the hustling I continue to. You want a real rap, well this is what I'm giving you. Haters want me dead, so they the main ones I'm living through. Never let the fame go to your head and get into you. Cause when you say your soul, we see the devil in your interview. I'm in my own lane, looking through my rear view. Hoping God forgive man for all the evil men do. As we continue giving you all the visual of what is to come next. When failure meets success.